SBDC network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Franchising 2: Trends, Opportunities, and Obstacles, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network with FranNet of Virginia and DC. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the expected large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box and we will address them at the end of the session. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Heather Rosen, President of FranNet of Virginia and DC. Heather is a franchise specialist from longtime SBDC resource partner and the creator of the SBDC's FranNet program, FranFit program, FranNet. Heather began her career as a lawyer advising businesses on contractual matters and litigation strategy, and then ran marketing and business development teams for large international law firms. In 2009, she left legal services to go into business for herself through a franchise. Now the owner of 2 franchises, Heather conducts franchise education workshops for the Virginia SBDC and several other organizations.
Sheila, I think we haven't hit record. It says on my computer. I don't know if that's true or not.
We're recording.
Oh, we are? Okay.
We're good.
Okay, good.
But thank you for bringing it up. And now I was telling everyone how wonderful you are, and
thank you so much. I appreciate.
I will let you go on, and I want to welcome Heather Rosen. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, absolutely, my pleasure. And you have found me in a talking about a topic that is one of my favorite things to talk about, because we're talking about currently what I'm seeing, the trends that are happening now, and what seems to be up next. And as Sheila was saying, I've been advising on franchises since 2009 for 16 years now. I have 2 franchises. I was drawn to this field because as a former business lawyer, I like the fact that if you know what you're doing, when you're researching franchises, there's actually evidence that you can look for, so that you don't have to just rely on somebody promising you that you're gonna make a lot of money. But a lot of people don't really know how to do this, even though the federal and sometimes state government too has really laid out a path for getting this information. And I write a lot about different business topics, especially those that pertain to franchisees, but not just. So if you want more content on that, you can scan this or email me to get on my newsletter list, and you will get those articles and also notifications of other webinars. So I worked through a company called FranNet. When I left legal services in 2009, and I wanted to go on business on my own, I wanted to do on my own, but the reality was that I had a big salary to replace, and so I didn't have the luxury of just hanging out a shingle, which a lot of lawyers do. But for this kind of work, it's very different than legal services. So I decided to become a franchise advisor by partnering with a franchise called FranNet that was already, very experienced. I think it's the oldest company that researches franchises. The only one that I'm aware of that's ever sat on the board of the International Franchise Association. And they had a reputation in franchising that I also wanted to leverage. And so I actually myself, the first time went into business through a franchise with a franchise partner that had the knowledge, but also the connections and was doing a lot of the work that you would have to do to be a good consultant for me, specifically researching franchises. And I can't tell you how important it is that when you're somebody who's talking about franchise opportunities, that you actually know what's currently happening and the history of franchises. And it's just impossible as an individual advisor to stay on top of thousands of franchises out there. So I still work through FranNet, and they still give me up-to-date information about franchises, as well as some tools that I use to be an advisor, including something called an entrepreneur profile, which I will, if anyone's interested in taking this, it like my help is all free. If anyone's interested in taking this, you can scan that and take the entrepreneur profile. So I started talking about this topic of trends in franchising in 2021. If you remember, February of 2021, we were still in the middle of COVID, but we were coming out of it. By this point, there was a vaccine, but not everybody could get it. They were rolling it out to people who were immunocompromised, elderly, etc. So we knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel, but most of us were still indoors, and we were trying to figure out how soon we could get out and what was next. And so I started talking about, what's already been happening in franchising. I think I actually started talking about some related topics even a year before this, because what was happening during COVID in the franchise world was franchises were already starting to meet very frequently, or more frequently, because they were already meeting frequently with their franchisees, but more frequently because, of course, everybody in business, franchise or independent, was panicked. But franchises actually would, get everybody together, some on a weekly basis. My own advisory business, we would get together on a weekly basis and talk about what do we do, what do we try, and we would do A and B testing, sometimes A, B, and C testing for different things, because we all knew that we needed to do something different because everybody was stuck at home. And so a year later, when I started talking about this topic, I had experienced it myself as a franchisee, and then I started thinking about other franchises and hearing about it, what they had been doing, which was something similar, and talking about based on what I actually saw, what was going to come next. And so this is what I said back in February of 21 that would be next. And this is relevant because you're going to see what actually happened, and maybe even know that most of these things, actually did happen this way. Franchises that support construction projects, specifically home construction, home repair. I said, that was actually, they were considered an essential service. So they were working during COVID as soon as they possibly could. I said that was actually going to continue because people during COVID spent more time at home, realized in most cases that they enjoyed that, and wanted to continue to spend more time at home and entertain friends and family at home, etc. So I said, that's probably going to continue. Pet care, with all of the COVID pet adoptions, now everybody has pets. People had children. I said, that industry, which was already established, would continue to grow because people still had to care for their pets and children. Of course, education was not something that was ideal for most students during COVID, especially really young students. And so there were going to be, and there definitely have been some continued education gaps. Personal recovery, I said, when people leave their house after being indoors for so long, a lot of people I'll say, myself included, did not keep up with fitness routines, did not keep up with self-care, salon services. Now going out in the world again, people needed to recover and start to look good again. And so I said that was going to be a boom industry. And then, of course, not just to see friends, but to start dating again, that you need to look good, but also you need somewhere to go. And so dining establishments, entertainment establishments that provide a space for people to meet somebody new, or maybe not someone new, but to date, would see a big surge. So that obviously impacts restaurants, but also restaurants, with COVID, there was the to-go racks, and I said that's probably going to continue. There's probably also going to be, I said, restaurants that look more carefully at getting a drive-through window if applicable. That also happened to some extent. Fundraising businesses, if you're not aware, the fact that kids weren't going into schools meant it was really, really hard for schools to fundraise. And also not-for-profits, if you're not going to a gala, you're not going to be able to get as many donations. That also happened. And so businesses that actually assisted these schools and not-for-profits to raise funds, I said we're going to experience a large demand. Cleaning businesses have been around forever. Were there some home cleaning businesses that for some period of time, didn't do as well? Yes. And when that came back, I said that was going to be, there's going to be a big surge in demand for that. But now we're, after COVID, we started talking about clean air, where that wasn't a topic before, especially in offices, which people didn't want to go back into. So that's part of it. The other part of it I said there was going to be a continued discussion about what is essential, and you want to be, and you still, even after COVID, you're going to want to be an essential business, because now you realize it's not just essential in case there's a recession, but what happens, if there's some other reason that people have to stay indoors, the essential businesses go back first. So you want to do there, you want to be in that space. If you're a retail business, there were retail businesses, including some franchises, that didn't make it through COVID, but not all of them closed down. A lot of them stayed open. In fact, there were some retail businesses that opened during COVID because the cost of renting commercial space dropped significantly. And so, the experienced business owners and the ones that, just were kind of savvy about it, they started buying up those spaces or leasing up those spaces, because they knew that that was going to be a key to their success once COVID ended. But what retail experienced during COVID was less foot traffic, because a lot of retail businesses were relying exclusively on being found because someone walked or drove by. Well, that wasn't happening during COVID. And so some of the retail businesses said, well, okay, we're going to start marketing, which we've never done before. And I said, I think there's going to be more retail type businesses, retail meaning there's a storefront, that say we better build marketing into our budget. It's even when people are walking and driving by again, it's really important to have it. It brings us more customers, which obviously we want. Some of these other things, more interest in outdoor businesses, I'm definitely seeing that, because of course, that was really important when we were all worried about getting sick and having long-term health consequences. There's definitely been more of that. Some franchises and other businesses looked at their retail model and said, what if we could do this in a smaller space that would be less expensive, more profit? There's definitely been I'm seeing that, and the franchises are still discussing that. The last two things here, I mean, this is something that, well before COVID, well before the business school classes I took in college, would talk about having a contingency plan and not if if you have just one or two big customers and you're relying on that, that's not a good place to be. And some businesses didn't make it simply because their one or two customers that they were relying on, those customers, other businesses closed. And so I thought, well, hopefully because of COVID, there would be more of a discussion about, broadening your customer base. That's not something that I'm hearing a lot in franchises, not a lot of contingency plans. But hopefully I'm sure actually the business counselors at the SBDC are still telling businesses that. Okay, so that's back then. So what's happened since 2021? The funding environment changed. Today, the interest rates and loan origination fees are higher. It took a long time. I think okay, we're good. Are higher. So that is as a result of a bunch of things that have happened. People's retirement loan portfolio values and general loan portfolio values shrunk, and then they've gone up more recently, which is, giving people more comfort. I don't know that they're still quite as high as they were about a year ago, but they're going up again. But that's a big change for the way that you think about funding your business. Since COVID, there's been a lot of M&A activity and private equity investment in franchises. We went from everybody's working from home except for some essential workers to most of those work from home jobs are essentially gone, or maybe they're hybrid, but the employers are definitely pushing for everybody to get back to the office. They know it's just really hard to manage employees who you can't see every day for most managers. And then of course, there's a lot of jobs going away, mostly as a fallout of the federal workforce reduction. But that obviously is having a big impact on the employment market. Goods and services, or goods and supplies that businesses buy, labor costs have gone up. It's actually going down a little bit now, but commercial real estate, home prices are up. That obviously has an impact on businesses. And for people who are in jobs, the pressure right now is pretty high. If you are in an industry that has been impacted in some way, there's the federal jobs that have gone away, but a lot of other jobs are tied to the federal job market. And if you're in a job that is in any way related to that, I heard just today that grocery stores even right now are, because of the SNAP benefits being frozen, grocery stores are suffering. So, and that has an impact on the workforce. And so, it's an interesting time because there are a lot of people hurting in jobs. There are some businesses that are hurting too, but I'm not here to tell you that it's all doom and gloom. There are a lot of businesses that are in this, essential category, which are just not impacted because it's essential. And then for some, you're going to hear there's actually, some upside too, coming as soon as we're back to sort of a normal situation with jobs. Also, as a result of COVID, you had people who were spending a lot of time with their family. As long as you liked that, people still want to spend time with their family and travel and have time flexibility. It's just harder now. New customers because of more pets, more kids, more unhealthy people, greater awareness of climate change. The heat impacts roofs and roads. It impacts the insect situation, outdoor insect situation, even the indoor insect situation, and it causes extreme weather events. Office buildings, there's been a big change in the office building occupancy, obviously negative change for them. There's empty office buildings. Some of them are converting to residences. Some of them are converting to big retail stores. It's happening, but it impacts a lot of other types of businesses. It also impacts where people live and where they shop. The AI factor is a real thing for a lot of businesses. It has changed the way some companies have done business. Franchises, you're going to hear, have really been leveraging AI. So it has a positive impact, but also obviously has made a lot of jobs, or at least has made employers think that a lot of jobs are now not necessary. So there have been cuts result to that, as a result of that, federal cuts and changing needs generally. So here's some other things that have happened as a result of these changes. So because of the change in funding environment, rates higher, franchises, when they're waiting for someone to, oh, and right now, by the way, SBA loans, the loan process is frozen because of the government shutdown. So that's not happening. There are some businesses where in order to open them, you're definitely going to need a loan. But sometimes you don't need a loan. And so some people who were thinking, well, when I open my business, I'm going to get an SBA loan, are looking at other ways of getting funding. And franchises are sometimes taking deposits while a loan is pending. So if you're looking at a business where you know you're going to definitely need some sort of a loan, you can look to see, and people are looking to see whether they can get a home equity line of credit instead, because those are still being approved. And because the cost of real estate has gone up, a lot of people have more equity in their homes as long as they bought before the prices went up. They have a lot of equity, and home equity lines of credit, your interest rate is based on a home loan, a second, it could be a second. Well, this by definition, it's going to be a second loan. The rate is usually, if not always, lower than an SBA loan rate, and you don't have the origination rate or fee that you would have to pay if you took out an SBA loan. Also, I'm seeing more people do retirement fund rollovers. There's a vehicle called a ROBS, which is a customized 401k that as a new business owner you can set up by companies that specialize in setting these up, and you could potentially use money in qualified funds. And this is something that existed before the changes, but what I'm seeing is more people looking to HELOCs and ROBS funds to fund their business because of the SBA freeze, but also because the cost of an SBA loan is now higher than it was even a year ago. As a result of the mergers and acquisitions, I mean, sometimes when I talk to people about mergers and acquisitions and private equity investment, they get nervous because they know what that means for a lot of jobs. It's actually different in the franchise industry. It's a positive. I haven't seen it be a negative yet, because when you're a franchisee, you're not going to lose your job. You're contractually, they're bound to you. You have rights that are yours by contract. So what it actually means is you've got money coming into your franchise, and you've got what's happening with the M&A is there are companies that are bringing in a bunch of franchises that are similar, home services franchises, for example, or it could be something else, a business to business franchise, but they bring in businesses that have some common characteristics. Typically, the common characteristic is the customer and the way you reach the customer. And they'll hire a group of people, maybe some new employees when the money comes in from the acquisition, some people who are very experienced and have, more knowledge and now more money than the franchise had before the acquisition. And so the whole franchise system, it could be a young franchise, but suddenly they've got some people that they wouldn't have been able to afford who really are very experienced, very smart, more talent in your franchise. And they'll also bring in technology, and they have the relationships sometimes with technology companies that, again, the franchise didn't have before the acquisition or before the private equity investment. And as a result of people working from home and sometimes with a hybrid job, and the jobs are more demanding. What happened since COVID was, because if you remember, right after COVID, you still for a couple of years had most people still working from home. Well, that's changed, right? And so as a result of COVID, you had more franchises that were thinking about their model and saying, could somebody start a business, run a business from home, and also have a job? And in some cases, they said yes. And people were definitely asking me for a business while they had a job while working from home. So I guess, the employers who said, gee, I'm not really sure if my employees are being productive, in some cases, they were right. There were more people who had a full-time job and also a business. It definitely happened. And so it caused the franchises to look to see whether this was a business that someone could run that way. So now you have more franchises that are open to, we call them semi-passive owners, starting a business while you have a day job or maybe other businesses. But because the jobs have become a lot of them have become a lot more stressful with employers looking for ways to cut. And so you're being scrutinized a lot closer. A lot of employees that are asking me today about this, I'm telling them, you got to be sure you have enough time. I'm not sure you do. And if you're looking for, maybe today your contract ended and it never got renewed, or you were let go, and now you're looking for a new job or a new contract, you might think, well, this is the best time to start a business because you have time. But once you get that contract or a job, you might not have enough time to do it. So it's something to consider if that's what you've been thinking about doing yourself. So with the cost of goods having gone up significantly, with the cost of labor having gone up since COVID, like I said, it is getting a little softer because there's more people looking for jobs, but it's still pretty high. Commercial real estate costs is, I don't see any signs of that going down anytime soon. So that, the deals that existed during COVID basically don't exist anymore. And franchisors are generally really good at just passing costs along to their customers. But if you're a buyer, if you're the customer, and you yourself are being exposed to a lot of things being more expensive, you're going to be choosier about what to buy, and you're going to expect probably more from whoever is selling you that product or service. Okay, so this next point here, over the years, I've gotten a lot of questions about vending machines, and I'm going to tell you, I've never been excited about them, and I'm going to tell you why. I mean, it seems like an easy way to get into business, and it can be pretty passive, or at least flexible. You can have a flexible schedule. The problem with vending machines, if you think about what's happening now, is where do you put them? So before COVID, when everyone was going into an office, people would say, well, I would just put them in the office because people need to buy snacks. The problem back then was, well, the offices, they all have vending machines, and why do you think they're going to give you that little space instead of Coca-Cola or Pepsi, which is going to be a much more desirable, reliable tenant than you as an independent business owner? That was the problem before COVID, but now less people going into an office. So where do you put them? So as a result, there still are vending machine franchises also, and maybe I'm seeing more of this now, vending machine business opportunities. And what they're doing though now is it is changed from vending machine that sells candy or drinks or some sort of healthy meals to a mobile market, which is really an interesting place to be because with, retail, the problem has always been what's a good space? And then now, with commercial real estate being a lot more expensive, it's an expensive space that you're signing a lease and committing to years. But if you're a mobile market, you have some more options. You can try out spaces, and you can put things in some cases into these machines other than the things that Coca-Cola and Pepsi buys or sells. And in some cases, you can even sell advertising. I think it's a really interesting thing that some of these businesses are doing. They're also leveraging technology. They're using, your Apple Pay. They're using uh, apps themselves to be able to buy things, and then you just pick it up at the machine. Um, and then I think, well, I'm gonna, talk about this a little bit if I have enough time. There's so much that you can do. It really gives you the opportunity to continue to look at opportunities and respond to that if you have instead of a vending machine, a mobile market. Okay. So recent developments have been these, and this is how the franchise industry has been responding to them. So more recently, with the increase in federal and federal adjacent cuts and cuts that are related to federal adjacent. By federal adjacent, I'm mostly talking about contractors. But then, as I was saying before, there are businesses that have been impacted by the SNAP freeze. And then there's also businesses that are impacted by the impact on contractors. So what's happening in the franchise industry in response to this has been more of a discussion about converting independent businesses that have some revenue, have employees, have some of the equipment, although it might not all be the right equipment, it might be older equipment in some cases, converting that into a franchise instead of having, only offering an option where somebody has to start from scratch. And there is a franchise or two that actually has a formal department that is a matchmaker department. Well, they'll actually help you. They know what to look for. They have access to a lot of data that you wouldn't have because you're not in the industry. You or I wouldn't have, where they can actually find an acquisition target, but also have the experience to analyze it to figure out if it's worth converting the business, help you negotiate the acquisition price for that. Very interesting option because, during COVID, and then a couple years afterwards, I started getting a lot more calls about existing businesses. And also in the past couple of years, there's been a discussion of ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition. I'm sure Mason's Business School talks about this. A lot of them do. So it's this, if you've never heard of it, it's the idea that the best way to get into business is to find an existing business that somebody has built. It's very successful. They're about to retire. Their kids don't want it. Um, they, it's a great acquisition for somebody who can come in and bring it up to date, not just acquire a business with revenue, but take it to the next level of growth. Sounds great on paper. The reality is there's not a lot of businesses like that out there, and everybody's looking for the same thing. The kinds of things that people typically find through Biz Buy Sell and business brokers is businesses that are riddled with problems, where it's not this, even if somebody is retiring, this is somebody who should have retired years ago, and in the last couple of years has pretty much run that business into the ground. Okay. So, because most business owners don't really know what the ideal time is to sell their business, or they hold on to it too long. And like I said, then the revenue drops. So it's for most people, that's going to be a needle in a haystack situation. So this conversion model, the matchmaker model, becomes very, very interesting because it allows you to look at businesses that have never even hit the market, that are worth it for the amount of money that you would actually pay for them. Okay, because that's another thing too, is how much do you pay? What's a fair price for a business for sale? Also, in response to people who need to replace income very quickly, maybe right away, um, some franchises are able to offer health insurance now, and in some cases, some other employee benefits. It's still not common in franchising, and it's not because of a lack of interest in offering employee benefits. You're not an employee of a franchise when you join. You have a contractual relationship with them. So, my understanding is the insurance companies don't consider you as a franchisee part of a group with your franchisor, and that's the reason that they don't. But some franchises have figured out a way around this. In particular, staffing franchises that where the franchisees hire people. The franchisor can also hire the franchisee themselves. So, and there's some other cases too, but because you actually, unlike most other franchise systems, you get hired as a franchisee, you might be eligible for employee benefits, including insurance that the franchisor has been able to secure. As a result of having the new customers, new pets, more children, there are more services. I would say the pet care industry it was around before COVID, but now there are more franchises in the space, more people opening up the franchises that existed before COVID. I've even seen some cat hotels, although I really worry about that because that's not a proven industry. It's, how many people do you know get their cat groomed or board their cat? Because cats are really independent. You can leave them for a while, maybe with somebody just checking in from time to time, but as indoor pets, especially, you can set everything up for them, and I don't want to say forget it, but they can be pretty self-sufficient with the feeding and watering products on the market. And they don't need it to be taken for a walk. So, but they're the product businesses and the businesses that do dog boarding, dog group grooming, where it's more of a common thing. And cats, they groom themselves a lot of time. So that's been a boom in the health and fitness space. Boy, this is a space, I talked about this space before COVID, but there may be 25% more franchises that existed before COVID. There is a huge boom here. I think that part of it has to do with GLP-1s, where people can see results in a quicker time, but you still have to, you can take the injection, but you still ideally want to build muscle. It's a result of people still recovering from what what happened during COVID, the decline in fitness and health, us getting older, us having, 50 plus, that's me, us having problems. Maybe we have long COVID. Maybe we went through, just the stress of having gone through COVID, stress has health repercussions. And so this industry is it was active before COVID. Now it's, I would say, on fire. There's so many different options here. You still want to be careful, because I think the risk in this industry is you go with something that's really trendy and not recommended by anyone's doctor. That's something that you're not sure if in a year or two people are going to be interested in, or enough people are going to be interested in. And a lot of these businesses too require that you have a physical location. And so now you're signing a lease, 5+ years, which is secured by your personal assets, even though you're a business. So you still really want to pay, you especially, I think, in this field, really want to pay attention to longevity and track record. Um, but business to business problem, businesses trying to get employees to come back to the office, they're still having problems with it. The less jobs there are, it becomes easier for them. But still, I mean, if there is a hybrid option, people still, typically find that they would rather work from home. And so instead of making them come in, there's a need for, I think a lot of businesses are looking at how can I make people want to come back into the office or want to interact face to face somewhere, maybe in an offsite with us, with other employees, because they know not just it's not just easier to manage employees, but there's a benefit of employees talking to each other, collaborating with each other face to face. So business coaching services in the franchise space, businesses that provide food carts, social events, other kinds of employee perks, plus making sure that when they do come into the office, they feel safe, the air, they can show them, hey, we are doing this to make sure you're not going to get sick during flu season, during COVID season, when you come back into the office. Okay. As a result of climate change, more eco-friendly companies that offer better products, you still have to make sure as a business that you're not overcharging for these. But everybody wants more eco-friendly. They want to be more eco-friendly. They understand that it's a good thing. It matters, but they're not willing to pay a lot more money for it. But especially when it comes to their pets, people are willing to spend more to not harm pets. There's more of a discussion, a little bit less now than there was a couple of years ago, about recycling and landfill awareness. So, if you're a business, this is what's happening, is they're still talking about these things because their customers, to some extent, still care, and some of them really care about it, especially if they are in a field that is dealing with the repercussions of climate change. And the reality is, if you own property, whether it's residential or commercial, you are going to have problems. You're going to have deteriorating exteriors. You're going to have flooding at different points. I mean, it is hotter, roofs melt, your roof doesn't last as long, hail damage, trees going down. This has all been exacerbated by climate change, and it will continue to be. And then, of course, the bug problems, the pest control companies that were around before COVID, the season for pest control is getting longer because of climate change. It's hotter, so the bugs come out quicker and they stay longer, unfortunately. But also, I think because people became a lot more, they had a flexible schedule during COVID, working from home. Most people going into business really want to keep it. I will tell you that personally, when I talk to clients, they always, or almost always, tell me when they're describing all the things they want in a business so that I can make recommendations. Almost everyone talks about work-life balance. Almost everyone talks about flexibility. They had it, they experienced it before COVID. Maybe they never had it. They had it during COVID. With all the things that were bad about COVID, the one thing that people will tell you is they liked working from home just in the sense of having the flexibility, being able to have some more downtime and eat healthier meals. And if you liked your family, spending time with that. So it's caused a lot of franchises to look at ways to allow people to continue to have that as a business owner. There's a bunch of business to business franchises that can be run basically from a laptop. Yes, you have to be in your community for some time so that you can talk to other business owners so that they know you. Some of those meetings, though, happen by Zoom. But in terms of the actual delivery of the service, that could happen from a phone and a laptop. Also, franchises have more franchises than ever have call centers now, or use contractors. Look, they've revamped their models as again as a result of the demand of their existing franchisees and new people who they were trying to recruit. And so franchises, the level of support that I'm seeing from a lot of franchises, which was good before, but it's really increased. There are cases where the franchisee does the marketing and nurtures relationships and handles customer service, but the franchise itself, they have the team of people, or they have a contractor source. They have call centers answering your phone for you. And in some cases, they can completely outsource the delivery of the product or service. That's a nice lifestyle to have as a business owner, instead of a business owner who's trying to do all of these things on their own. There have been more franchises that have been open to the general manager model. You have to be careful that if you are going to have a general manager run your business while you run other businesses or work a day job, it's got to be somebody who you know something about. So somebody who you can really trust, but more franchises are open to that now than they were before COVID. Now in terms of restaurants, because this is still the area where I get the most questions is, what about a restaurant? I think, when people think of franchises, a lot of times what they're most familiar with is restaurants because they've seen them actually in their community. As I was telling you before, these movable locations, this has been a big change that's continuing to evolve, where more of the restaurant franchises are looking at, can this be an upscale vending offering? Can this be a movable location? Can we scale down the menu so that and make things more self-service so that we can reduce the cost of employees delivering this product? If you are going to be a higher end restaurant, can you offer an experience? And you see this in movie theaters, and there's also some entertainment options that also have restaurants attached to them. So they go to market as an entertainment option. There's one actually that's recently opened near me. It's called Level 99. It's a big, I don't know how to describe it, but it's a bunch of little kiosks, each which offers a different experience. It's right next door to a brew pub. Great place to go on the weekend, and it's a great place to go on a date. That has changed. The businesses are thinking that, look, we can't just offer food because people can get that from the grocery store. Even, prepared foods you can get from a grocery store. People can still get it through Uber Eats, and the profit margins for Uber Eats and the other companies' food. If you're a restaurant, it was already thin. It's razor thin. They don't want the Uber Eats business. They want people to come in and buy from them directly. So if you're a restaurant, you really want people to come in and sit down. At least some people. You could still have a to-go offering, but that you want people to come in. They're also going to order alcohol from you. We all know that alcohol, there's a much bigger margin with alcohol sales if you're a business that sells that than there is for the food itself. So restaurants are rethinking, listen, we have to make it so people want to come in and be here in person. That's going to be a situation where there's an experience to be had, not just the food that they can just buy through Uber Eats. But you have to be careful. There's, certainly besides the franchises, a lot of independent businesses that are selling food. You have to be careful about food safety. If you're a restaurant, unlike a lot of other types of businesses, you or your employees can serve somebody, can sell food, your product to somebody and literally kill them. Food safety is not just something that you have to worry about because the health inspectors, but you have food allergies, you have foodborne bacteria, which can put somebody in the hospital or worse. So that's something that, in the restaurant business, the ones that people are the most excited about are usually the new ones, the new kids on the block. But you got to make sure that your franchise is really, really buttoned up when it comes to the food safety issues, so that you don't have these kinds of problems. And that's hard because even the big franchises, even the McDonald's of the world, they still have franchisees who buy from a vendor and there is E. coli, laced meat or something like that. That still happens. So trends today, as I was saying before, when you're looking at retail, you want to probably at least consider the beauty or fitness or wellness industry because there's a lot of demand, and that is going to continue. And the number of options right now available to you is large and growing. You should also think about, if you don't necessarily need retail, retail's great. For some people, that's absolutely the best way for some people to get into business, but not everybody needs it. And of course, if you have a retail business, the cost to open is going to be significantly higher than a service business. So in the service space, and the service space is the one that I think most people know the least about. Think about a business that is related to selling or fixing or improving a house. I'll put commercial property in that category too, because a lot of the home improvement, the home, some businesses specialize in making the home ready for market look good on Zillow. A lot of these businesses also can do commercial work, which it's a really interesting space to be in, I think, because I think you're going to see more of those conversions of commercial space into something different, given where people live today and the way they live. Franchises expanding through acquisition. As I said, I think this is a really interesting way to get into business because you can start literally with, maybe replace your salary right away. The business to business space is not something that a lot of people consider, but that's still a need. There's still a whole bunch of businesses out there that help other businesses do something that's really important to them. In some cases, like cost reduction, which you see here, cost reduction franchises will literally save some businesses. So, for those of you who are thinking, I really want to do something that really helps my community, maybe maybe some of you were, military veterans who were driven by, I want to do something that's really meaningful. I miss having a mission. This is a really noble mission, is helping a business survive so they don't have to lay off people so that owner can support their family. That's a really good one. Businesses with call centers, if you're in the service space, look for a business with a call center because that could significantly free up your time. Franchises that are harnessing AI to do things like customer acquisition, to do things like the chat bots on the website. A lot of businesses have a website. Every business has a website. Almost everyone does. But most of them are not effective. They're not going to actually result in someone clicking a button and reaching out to you. So chatbots, AI-driven chatbots have been a way that a lot of franchises have used AI to bring customers into a conversation where they will click on a button that will result in their contact information, their inquiry coming to the franchisees. Semi-absentee ownership, again, I think this could be an opportunity for some people. You just have to make sure that you're schedule with, if you have a full-time job, is flexible enough. It's more feasible probably with existing business owners who already have a flexible schedule, but they just need to grow and they want to grow into a space where there's, a track record, where there's a lot of support at the franchisor end. That's a safer bet that could work. You just, again, if it's going to be something that you do with your job, it's possible, but boy, you better really make sure that your manager is someone that you can trust. And there are ways to do that. I mean, it doesn't have to be a family member. It's great if it can be. But maybe it's somebody who is referred to you by somebody else who used to employ them. That's a lot safer bet than someone who you just, find online. Um, an opportunity to use retirement funds, now that the stock market has recovered a little bit, it might be time to start looking at diversifying. If you go to the SEC website, well, actually, I don't really know what it says today since we're in the middle of a shutdown, but it used to say, um, you should diversify your investments. And people just thought that meant, well, go to your stockbroker and tell them to diversify. What it really means is you want to invest in something other than just stocks and bonds. And so, maybe it's time now that you have some capital in your portfolio, or maybe you have, some equity in your home, to take some of that money and diversify it, put it into a business. You want to have things that can rise in certain conditions, and in other conditions the stock market rises. You don't want to put all of your eggs in the stock market basket and hope that there's enough money there for you when you're ready to retire. Um, I think what I'm seeing is there are certain businesses that only provide services during the season. Obviously, the season I'm talking about, or maybe it's not obvious, is the warm season. There's a bunch of businesses that provide, lawn services, outdoor pest services, and other services, pool services, for example, just when it's warm outside, sprinkler systems, things like that. What's interesting now is that a lot of these businesses have looked at, and these are businesses, by the way, where there already were franchisees that were making enough money during the season to live off of. But they're looking at ways to offer off-season services to their same mailing list. That could be a great opportunity for someone. One of the areas where I've seen this has been in the holiday lights sector. I don't know if it's considered a sector, but boy, I'm not just seeing more and more people have elaborate, expensive holiday, usually Christmas, but now Halloween too, displays, but businesses. I mean, people want to go into businesses where it's cool, it's neat, it's pretty. There are more and more, pop-up bars, pop-up restaurants too. I think that's going to continue. People want to be happy, they want to be entertained. And if you can bring that to them, that's an experience that they're going to want to have. They're going to want to bring their friends. So I think that industry is just going to continue to grow. And then there's the experienced, savvy, risk adverse, but also not as risk averse as a first-time business owner. Those business owners are just buying and buying and buying territory right now, or master rights in the top franchises. There are some franchises where literally I will tell a client that this is a really good business, it's growing, and a month later, one of their own franchisees has said, I want that territory. If you want in on the ones that are growing fast, and it doesn't have to be a fast growing franchise to be a great franchise. There are some that are just a little under the radar, especially in the B2B sector. But if you want in on a large growth trend, you probably want to talk to somebody who knows what's going on in the industry. So, here's some things that you want to think about too. Things to avoid, obstacles, but you don't want to lead with and this is something that most people do, okay? You don't want to lead with, okay, I'm looking for a business. What do I like the best as a consumer? And this is something that, again, a lot of people do this. And yes, you want to be passionate about your business, but what actually is going to stick, what people stick with businesses for is not because of the product or service. It's more about the business itself, what the business earns and how happy they are running the business. When you lead with the passion, you're first of all, you're probably thinking about food, because that's what people get the most passionate about is food. It could be, childcare or something like that, children's activities. But the problem is your skill set might not match the skill set of the people who actually do well in that business. There's different businesses for people with different amounts of time, different amounts of money, and different skills. Um, you might not have time to run that business and you might not be able to afford. You might be all in, you know, put your entire retirement savings into a business just because you love the pizza, only to find out that, wow, running this business is miserable because restaurants are no joke. I mean, they're usually 7 days a week, 12 to 15 hours a day, plus, 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 in at 4 in the morning, out in some cases, if you're baking anything, um, opening and closing, and there's a lot that can go wrong. So don't lead with that. I would start with a business that meets your skill set, is going to be feasible given the amount of time that you have to put into it, and is affordable for you. Then find something afterwards that where you're the most passionate about the product or service. And if you think about it, you probably chose your career the same way that I'm suggesting. This is not new. You didn't pick your career because you liked pizza. You picked your career because you liked the work and you thought the salary would be good. And maybe originally you liked the lifestyle. Maybe it's not a great lifestyle anymore, in which, that's when people look at changing their career, too. So start with that. Start with the way that you thought you were going to pick your career. Do the same thing with the business. And then, if you have choices, which you probably will, more choices than you will probably with a new career, pick something that has a product that you like the best of the choices that match the other things, but don't lead with that. You also don't have to have industry experience. The food business is a little bit different. The most experienced food franchises, they really do want people who have multi-unit food franchise experience. And that, I think, is not because they can't train you, because they can. I think it's because you have a better sense of what it's like as an owner of a food franchise, which again is more hours than you probably think, less flexibility, etc. And so somebody who's managed multiple restaurants will already know that that's what it's going to be like. But in most other franchises, you don't need experience. And as you can see here, this is statistics from the International Franchise Association. Less than 20%, 25% of franchisees are in the same industry that they came from, that they ever worked from. And the reason is the franchisor has the industry experience. So think of yourself with a franchise as going into business with a partner. If you go into business with a partner, you don't both have to have industry experience. One of you does. So the franchise is going to be hopefully more than just one person. They have the industry experience. They're going into business with you. They know who your customer is, how to find your customer, what the customer is willing to pay, etc. You just have to have the skill set, enough money, enough time, enough motivation to make it work. Okay. But be careful about going into business with an actual partner. It can be done, but there are plenty of cases where this has happened and the partner and you do not see eye to eye, and suddenly one of you or both of you want out. Okay. That's one thing. The other thing is, if you're looking for a business that's going to support you, where you're going to be able to live off of the money, yes, it's nice to have somebody else contribute to the cost, but also you're going to be splitting the profits. Don't forget that. Make sure there's enough money for you to justify the money and the time that you're going to be putting into business now that you have a partner. Okay. Also, if you find a franchise and you want somebody to review your documents, there are franchise lawyers. Please, please, please don't hire just anyone. Make sure it's an actual franchise attorney that has read through, maybe even written these documents before and understands what the industry standard is. You don't want a lawyer who says, I don't like the fact that the franchise can step in and take over your business if you go rogue, because every franchise agreement is going to say that. They have to. They have to maintain control over franchisees going rogue and hurting their brand, their intellectual property. Also, don't hire a lawyer if the only thing you're hoping for is that they're going to help you reduce your franchise fee or reduce your royalty. It's probably not going to happen. They're not going to give you a better deal than they gave all of the other franchisees just because you happen to hire a lawyer. That's not going to happen. There are some exceptions to that rule. Also, if you're an area developer and you have a unique type of territory, there could be some things that are negotiable in that case. It might make sense for you. Maybe even more so. You probably should hire a franchise lawyer. But if you're just going in as a typical single or multi-unit franchisee, the lawyer's not going to be able to change that for you. The best you could probably expect is some sort of explanation or clarification, but not different terms than the other franchisees have in their agreements. And like I said, be careful if you have a day job or other businesses that you actually have enough time to run this business. Take the time to talk to other franchisees about it and make sure that they say that you can do it given the time that you have available. So opportunities ahead are businesses that may, and not just ahead, but also right now, businesses that make people more attractive, healthier, feeling better, businesses that provide cost savings, businesses that provide services for the aging population. And here's some examples: conversions, businesses where you can hire a manager or store a partner while keeping your day job or taking contracts. But again, you want to make sure that you check that with other franchisees, and franchises that actually use AI for good to give you better technology that can help you acquire customers, franchises that offer a call center. And some franchises, a lot of them actually, one of my clients was telling me about this just yesterday, they'll actually come out to you, help you open, be there with you for some period of time, and in some cases, they will actually be the one providing training to your employees. So you don't have to do that as a business owner either. So other things, this is an extra O, other things. If you go into business, view this as a 5-year project at minimum. Meaning if you're going to go into business, plan to be in the business for at least 5 years. If you don't think you're going to stick around in this territory that you're looking at for at least 5 years, you probably shouldn't do it. You should probably wait until you're more settled into a location where you think you will be there for at least 5 years. The first 2 years, even in the best franchise, it is going to be a hustle. You're going to work more hours at the beginning than you do after you have your trusted employees in place. And if if you have a job or a contract, so I'm saying you might not be able to pull it off because you didn't put enough time into your business in the first 2 years. You're building a foundation for a business that's going to keep growing and it's going to be healthy, even if you start, spending less time in it long term. When you sell your business, it could easily take 2 years to find the right buyer. So when you're thinking about starting a franchise, if you're thinking about starting any business, think about selling 2 years before you actually want to sell. You don't have to take a buyer's offer, but you want to get your business ready for sale, which is making your business house the most attractive it can be, so that you find the best buyer who is able to give you the most amount of money. And if I didn't say it already, know that franchises can be bought and sold just like any other kind of business. The difference being that the new person, the person who buys your business is going to be the franchisee. Your contract ends, and the new person, your buyer, is going to be the new franchisee. They're going to have a contract with the franchisor. And typically they don't, there are some exceptions, but very rarely do they actually have to pay the franchise fee. So what you're conveying is the franchise fee that you already paid, plus your staff, plus any equipment. And the most valuable piece of it is actually probably going to be your book of business. This is the goodwill. They're looking to, just like you would be doing if you're buying somebody's business, they're looking to walk into a situation where people or other businesses are going to be buying from them in year one. And so it takes a little while. And I encourage you to find a mentor at the SBDC to help you for those of you who have a business, or if you go into business now, when you're 2 years before you think you definitely want to be out, start talking to them about how to get your business ready for sale. There are people who can be really helpful to you at the SBDC offices. And then also, when you go into business through a franchise and now you're selling your franchise, that could be an attractive thing. The franchisor wants your successor to be somebody who's good. They typically won't stand in the way of you finding a buyer, but they could. If they think the person is going to be a disaster, they could. They typically are pretty flexible because they don't want to cause any conflict or anything like that. They actually might even be able to find your buyer for you. So, when you sell your business and you go to a business broker, my understanding is business brokers typically look for 10% of the sale price as their commission. Your franchisor might actually find you a buyer, your buyer, without you having to pay them anything other than a transfer fee, which is typically a lot less than the buyer. And the reason they have a lot less than a business broker would charge you. The reason they have the transfer fee, by the way, is when somebody new comes in, they have to train them and mentor them just like they were a brand new franchisee. That's not on you. When you sell your business, you could be out. You could be done, unlike an independent business where you're probably going to be required to stay on board for some period of time. With a franchise, the franchise is going to train the new person. So there's a transfer fee, and typically it's like an education fee, basically for the new person. So that person can get up to speed very quickly and continue to make money for themselves and also for the franchise system. You still want to think through whether going into business through a franchise is right for you. I'm not going to go through all of this, but do know that you have to be at least somewhat of a system follower. You are going to have a contract that gives you probably some exclusive rights to do business in a certain part of the country, but there are going to be some benchmarks there that if you don't meet those minimum benchmarks, you could, lose territory. So it is for people who are more, you don't have to be full-time, but it is for people who are more goal-oriented, who are a little bit more serious about making it happen. Okay. They love people who are achievers, who have, who have achieved goals professionally in the past. That's a good sign. If you've done that, if you can look at your career and say, I've achieved a lot, they love that. They're thinking you're going to achieve a lot in this business system too, as long as you are at least somewhat of a system follower. There are going to be some, I think protected territories are great. Business to business franchises typically don't have the same kind of protected territories, which that's a great situation for some people. Not everybody wants protected territories. They want to be able to do business, pretty much anywhere, especially if you're thinking about moving, or if you want to live in two different markets, that could be a great way to do business. But you're going to have a contract. You can get out of a contract, but you do have to make sure you're the right person. And if you're on the fence about this, you're not really sure, let's have a conversation. Maybe I can give you some clarification about, what I mean here, because, me personally, but the SBDC, all of the business counseling agencies, we all want you to get into business, but only if you're actually going to succeed. We don't want people, losing their savings, getting into situations with banks and not being able to repay their loans. So we want to tell you these things up front so that you know kind of which path to go on here. But there's a lot of things about franchises besides the history, besides the support, having access to other franchisees. That could be just as valuable as having access to the training team at your headquarters. It's a whole other set of knowledge that you have access to from people who are actually in the same business as you. And hopefully this last point under advantages doesn't scare anyone. We talk about the fact that we don't want regulations. You are not regulated as a franchisee. This is not about you being in a regulated business. What this means is the Federal Trade Commission, and in Virginia, the Virginia Corporation Office, they make sure that franchisees they try their best to make sure that franchisees are delivering, that they're not ripping people off. So they make them file every year a pretty lengthy document, which they have to pay lawyers a lot of money to prepare, which exposes things that could be red flags. If there are red flags, it'll expose it. So the fact that that's regulated is great. They're looking at it every year. They have to give you a copy of this document. And one of the things, besides all the, if there are red flags, a lot of them will come up in the document. Besides that, the document has a full and complete list of all of their franchisees with contact information. It also has a list of people who owned the franchise up until last year, the last time it was filed, their contact information as well. So when you do diligence, and this is, again, one of the things that I really like about franchises is the type of diligence that you could do with a franchise is unlike the diligence that you can do with an independent business you're buying from someone. It's unlike the type of diligence you can do on something unregulated like a business opportunity. And again, not to knock business opportunities, but you're never going to get a full list of the people who bought into the business opportunity. And the person who is selling you their business, they might give you some tax returns and things like that. But see, we as business owners have the ability to write off a lot of expenses that we didn't necessarily have to write off, but the IRS code, tax code says we can write off. So our CPAs tell us, write off all the depreciation. So my tax returns are not going to be as impressive as what I'm going to tell someone they can earn from my business if they buy it from me. Okay. So business owners, when you start to kind of piece together, well, what is this business really generating? It's not that easy. It's not as easy as you might think. Okay. But when you have the full list of all of the franchisees, including people who left, you can really get to the bottom of this. And it's really, really nice when you're in this phase trying to figure out, is this the right thing for me? So things I want you to think about as you're going through this process. What is your transferable skill set? The one that's not on here is operations. They're great businesses for people who have an operations background. It's just not the same business as the ones for people with sales backgrounds, and vice versa. You don't have to sell in a franchise, but there are some franchises where you absolutely do have to have a sales background, and you are definitely going to struggle. You probably won't make it. So find a business, remember, don't lead with the passion for the product or service. Short term, look for a business you can get into where you will not fail, where you will succeed because of what you're hoping to achieve, the time that you have, the money that you have, the skills that you have. And the more research you do, especially talking to franchisees, the more you will improve your odds of success. You can really, really reduce your risk if you do the things that I'm telling you to do today. Long term, it's not just about the money. I mean, you should have an idea of what you need this business to make to justify your monetary investment and to justify your time, but also the business should give you the lifestyle you want. If you're working around the clock and you have no life, you might still not want to be in that business because your health could suffer, your family's not going to see you. You're going to look back and you're going to say, well, what did I do? What did I do this for? Okay. Think about what's important to you. Here are things that people typically talk about. What's the most important to you? And talk to franchisees about whether they are getting those things. And then, of course, as an exit, look for something that could become an asset that you can sell. Not all businesses sell for, a multiple. Some do, some don't. Sometimes people want just an income. They don't need a lot of repeat business, but if you're looking for something that's going to be part of your retirement nest egg, there's some businesses that do and some businesses don't. But some people just want something that they can pass down to their kids. Maybe it's a retirement job for them. My dad is 84 years old. He still works part-time, but he has some franchises that have a lot of support. He can do it part-time. He doesn't need the money at this point. Although some people, who are trying to retire really do need some more money. They're really going to have a hard time, or they're having a hard time retiring on the money they have. But for him, it keeps him young. It keeps him feeling, important and strong again. And he likes the fact that people are still listening to him, even at his age. So it's a nice way to retire, but he doesn't want to work full time, and he definitely wants to have a flexible schedule. So, there are thousands of options. Please go through these steps. They're not all going to be available near you. All the franchises, these are some of the registration states here. You're not going to be able to open every franchise in your state. Virginia is a registration state. There are lots of franchises that you simply can't open in Virginia. You can't even, if you live in Virginia, you also can't open them, even if you're opening them up in DC or Maryland. And you want to make sure that they have a good track record. There's a big cost difference between franchises, okay? When people ask me about the restaurants, restaurants these days, you're probably going to need at least $350K. But look at all the different options that you have that are under $350K. And again, I'm not saying don't open a restaurant. I like restaurants too, but it's not the right business for everybody. You have to really look at all the things that we talked about and figure out if that's the best choice. You don't necessarily need to spend as much. For some people, they would make more money. It would be more affordable, but they'd also make more money in businesses that were a service business instead of a restaurant. And they would have a much happier life, a better lifestyle. Okay, different businesses for different people. Here's some different resources here. Sheila, I think, is going to send out, maybe you have to request it, I'm not sure, the recording to people, but here's some other things that you can read through more about franchising. I actually contributed a chapter to the More Than Just French Fries book that is available on Amazon. I don't get a royalty from it, but that is out there. So, for those of you who want some more help, I'm going to give you this link, the thing to scan. Do take the entrepreneur profile. There's an additional set of questions I'm probably going to ask you to if you want some one-on-one help, which again, none of this costs you anything, but if you really are going through this process, reach out to me or somebody else who knows this field, who can really help you go through this process and research businesses that are, we say, put together a business model. Business model is a list of the things that you would want a business to do and what you bring to the table. Find a business that matches your personal individual business model. And, I'll send you the questions to ask. We'll talk about them, and I can, maybe point you towards something that would make sense for you to research. And then you'll have some options that are closer to what you would actually want. I'm going through a search for a vacation home right now, and the real estate agent is asking me, give me your list of criteria. I have, I would like them to take me through the options so that I knew what criteria I should even be looking for. It's a shortcut if you do it this way. And it should take you about 3 to 4 months to go through it. If you've really gone through these steps and you've put 3 to 4 months of time each week into the search, you should be able to find your ideal franchise. If it's less than 3 months, for most people, you've probably missed a key piece of the diligence. So let's figure out what you're missing. All right, contact information, link to the entrepreneur profile. You can also, through one of these links, sign up for the newsletter. So if you don't have a QR code reader, just reach out and I'll send you the link. And that is all I have right now. I don't know if there are any questions in the Q&A box. Okay, I do see a
Yeah.
couple. Let
Hi,
me
Heather. We have a couple. So the first question was, could you talk about education services for children and coin laundry type businesses?
Okay, yeah, quickly, I mean, what I want to say about education services for children, that's a good space to be in. Actually, it depends on the age of the child. I think for really young children, you almost want it to be a combination of education and daycare. You see this actually with martial arts studios, is they're providing a fun after school service that helps mom and dad, because mom and dad can't be home when school is done. But you're also helping the child with physical education, burning some of that crazy energy, also offering tutoring and homework services. That's a better space to be in, I think, than just education for little kids, or daycare services where they're also offering education. There's a really neat daycare franchise that also, in addition to the care, they offer arts and performing arts, which is, I'm going to get up on my pedestal or my soapbox right now. I think performing arts is a great skill for little kids to have, because it allows them to be more confident, to be able to talk to people. And later in life, they're just much more comfortable, being able to improvise and talk about things. They tend to be great speakers and networkers. So I love the fact that this daycare franchise is actually offering that as part of its curriculum. I mean, they're obviously not doing Shakespeare, but it gives kids the experience, the practice of getting up and doing something, speaking in front of their peers. For older kids, tutoring services is what we're talking about with education. Right now, I will say I'm not necessarily recommending tutoring services. Reason being, I think the college requirements are still shifting. It shifted a lot during COVID. I don't know that the tutoring businesses really know yet you know, what colleges are looking for, because usually it's, a combination of SAT prep, ACT prep, but also college application. I think the colleges are still trying to figure out how to recruit the right people. And then there's, changing requirements of certain colleges, or not requirement, changing requirements, but also changing the makeup of the student population they think wants. So it's I would give that maybe another couple of years, and hopefully there'll be more of a formula that a tutoring franchise can actually, really share and help your child through. Coin laundry type businesses, pros and cons. First of all, they're needed in some communities, but also it's not always in a safe area, so it's not for everybody. Also, don't forget that it's still technology, it still breaks. The coin op franchises today are, use a credit card. They're not coins usually anymore. It's usually credit card, or in some cases, scan your phone. Technology breaks. So if you're doing it because someone said, oh, you just set it up and collect the money, it's really not like that. Talk to other franchisees and find out what's actually involved on your part, or on the part of a crew that you might have to have ready to come in, because if somebody loses money on their machine, they're going to be mad and they might kick your machine, and they might never come back again. So you do have to be able to respond. It's not quite as automated as you might think. And yes, I do have a list of franchise attorneys. It's not really a list. There's a couple, depends what you need it for. So get in touch and let me know, and I'm happy to share the right franchise attorney for what you're trying to do.
Wow. And you have a minute to spare. That's
Well,
great.
I'll just encourage you to, if you got through this and you thought, a lot of choices. I'm not really sure where to go. I think I want a business, but I'm still not sure, really how to do this so that I don't end up with something that is a money loser. Reach out. Nobody's going to try to force you into anything. Ask questions. Again, this is all about finding a business for people who are ready to go into business, a franchise for people who franchise is right for you, because that's not everybody, and then the right business for the right person, so that we can have more long-term business owners in the Commonwealth.
Heather, thank you. It's obvious that you know the ins and outs of both sides and can definitely help someone looking to start a franchise. So I agree. Reach out to Heather and take these quizzes that she put up. And also, as you said, Heather, there will be an email that's going to go out with a link to this recording. So you had a lot of great information. So you all can go back and listen to it and watch again. And you'll have all these links in that recording to reach out to Heather. And I just want to thank Heather, you again for presenting, and all of you that joined us today. And remind you that you can sign up for upcoming webinars or access the recorded webinars on our site at virginiasbdc.org/training. These resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. And Heather and I are working on more webinars for next year, so stay tuned. We'll be getting those out in the near future, and we look forward to seeing you all next year. Take care.